Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop. Slightly different feature this week. This week we're going to be taking this broken wooden child's chair and making it as good as new. Roll the intro. So, fellow woodworkers, in this week's episode I'm going to be taking this broken child chair and trying to replace it. I've never done anything like this before. If you've seen some of my other videos, I have a little bit of experience with chairs when I made my own stool, which I'll put in the link above. And this chair actually is one that is used in a school. It's incredibly expensive, and as you can see, where the leg joins, it has completely sheared off. The wood is split, leaving me two absolutely perfect joins. Now, as I said, I've never done anything like this before. I haven't even watched any videos on YouTube on how to repair a chair like this, but because I'm lucky enough that I've got some of the actual joint, it will fit back perfectly. But because this is going to be used by children, obviously it needs to be a really tight fit. So my plan is first of all to glue the leg back exactly as it was, and then I'm going to pin it using some dowels, one from the top and one from the side. So let's get cracking. So the first thing I did was get a bit of sandpaper. I think it's about 120 grit, and I just lightly sanded the edges, both on the split and on the split piece of wood, because I wanted to have something for the glue to attach to, and it was quite a smooth surface where the break of the wood had gone in. Obviously, because it's sort of sheared off, both sides of the surfaces were really smooth, and I didn't want that. So I just wanted to give it like a little bit of a key by gently sanding both pieces. And when I did that, it had just roughened up the edges enough that hopefully the glue would stick. I know some people put salt on in glue to get them to grip and things like that, but to me that just feels weird. So I just sanded it down lightly, got in all the nooks and crannies, ready for the gluing, which I thought was going to work perfect. So I got the wood glue. I'm actually coming towards the end of this bottle of wood glue, and the red cap, the sort of squeezy cap, is completely obliterated. So I'm pouring it out the bottle, and as you can see, I did the worst job of pouring that glue out of the bottle than you can possibly do. Or so I thought, but wait until later in the video and you'll see an even worse pouring. And looking at this now, I think there was probably too much glue on it to start with. And the other mistake I made, which I did rectify, I should have put some super glue inside on the wood glue as well to help with the immediate bond. I didn't think of doing that the first time round, but when this leg fell off a few times, which you'll see in a minute, it was time to apply a little bit of CS glue, which is what I did. But initially I thought this would work, and the other thing about using the glue in this way is it sticks after a certain amount of time, and the temperature really dropped. I filmed this video on the 18th of December in 2021, and it was really, really cold. The temperature had dropped quite significantly, and because it drops quite significantly, the glue didn't dry as quick as it normally does. This glue, which is just Evo stick glue, has got a really good drying time, and normally it's dry within about 5 or 10 minutes, to the point where, you know, it doesn't move, and it takes about an hour to fully set. But this time, it didn't. So I stuck it, and then of course I tried to clamp it, which proved to be even more challenging, because whichever way I clamped it, the other end popped out, and then when I tried to put another clamp on the other end, it forced the original clamp down, and then it pushed it out of the joint. So I had quite a bit of fun trying to glue this, as you'll see, but I did get there in the end. So this is where I started the process of clamping it, which, as I said, I thought it was going to work. I got the first clamp on, no problem. When I came to push this one on, you'll see it totally pushed the wood out of the joint. And the clamps on the side were quite strong, and I thought, well, oh, hold on a minute. And then I tried to wipe off the excess glue. Anyway, eventually I got around to just putting two very light clamps on, not massively heavy, and then I just dealt with the squeeze out. So at this point, I just wanted to determine the angle that I was going to drill into. I had some dowel lying around the workshop, but I wanted to make sure that this dowel came in on an angle. So I wanted to mark it. I was just going to do this freehand. So I just made a little mark with a Sharpie so I knew where to go. And also you can see it's slightly wobbling the chair, and that's because it's lost one of the plastic feet. But once I put the mark in with a Sharpie and I knew the angle that I wanted to come in at, I changed drill bits and started the drilling. Just as I was about to drill, I had a sudden second thought that I should check the size of the dowel, which I'm glad I did, because I was convinced that dowel was an 8mm dowel that I had. And I actually had two pieces of dowel. One was 9 and one was 10, so neither of them, sorry, one was 12, so neither of them were the right size. I then found that I didn't have the correct drill bit, so I had to make a slightly bigger hole for the drill to go through. So I went to the miter saw. Since I've changed the blade on this miter saw, I can't tell you how much better it is. If I'd have done this with the old blade that came on, the stock Evolution blade, it would have just torn it to shreds. But since I put this Saxon blade on, which is an amazing blade, it's much, much better, and the quality of the cuts is so much stronger. So I just whipped off a couple of little bits. This was the dowel, the peg that I'd made to go in the side, not the one you just saw me mark. So I just took off that little one to go sort of in the side, and this next one was the longer one that would go all the way through the top of the chair, sort of to provide the main support, really. So this was where I made my first mistake. I made a little pilot hole and I had left the glue to dry for about an hour. But as I said, I think the cold weather had affected it, because as I started to drill, you can see gradually the leg is detaching and then it splits, and I didn't quite catch that. So I put it back together thinking, oh, and then it fell off. And then I realised that the push through from the hole, the wood that had gone through as it pushed it away, there'd been a little bit of sort of rubbish left in there, and I couldn't get my chisel in, so I just literally got a screwdriver, put it back together, and had another go. But then I was stuck from the fact that the glue had sort of part dried, not part dried, and it just was not holding together. And as you can see, I tried 2 or 3 different ways of getting it to work, none of which was satisfactory at all. So this is when I went for the CA glue, and I thought I'll just put a bit on just to help bond the leg in the first place. Luckily, earlier on when I'd put so much wood glue on, there was still a lot of glue on there and it was quite tacky, but I just spread out a little bit more in the hope that it would help with the CA glue on there as well. Luckily, it did. It kept it tight enough that I could get the clamp on it. But again, it took a few goes to get the clamp to sort of sit where I wanted it to be. And when I'd got that and I was happy with it at that stage, I thought, perhaps this is now the time to quit while you're ahead. But no, being me, I tried to clamp it as well, which took a few goes, as you can see, especially with the clamp falling off. And what I should have done was just wedge something under that front bit. You can see there the 2 holes where the actual plastic thing is missing. That's what I should have done. But try as I might, and no matter which position I got it in, I couldn't quite get it to clamp exactly as I wanted it. So I eventually did get it to clamp together, and I wanted to finish that hole. I wanted to do this before I left it to dry overnight. So I got it clamped, got it exactly how I wanted it, and just fit in the wedge. It was, to be honest with you, the little bit of dowel that I was using as the pin was too small because the hole I drilled was too big, because as it turned out I needed a 9mm wooden drill bit, which I didn't have. So I drilled a 10mm hole, and I thought, I'll just fix it by overflowing with wood. And there's the second glue spill, although that one's all right compared to the one you'll see later. So I got it in there, pushed it down, it was a nice fit, and then I decided to call it quits while I was ahead and leave it there, just drying off the squeeze out, of which there was quite a bit, and just tidying it up. But I had managed to do what I wanted to do. So day 2, I came in, undid the clamps, and to my utter amazement, it had dried rock hard. I was really pleased. So the next thing I did was I went for the second hole, which would be the side pin. If you remember back to when I was cutting the wood, this is the smaller pin. And I deliberately didn't go all the way through on this. I went through so that the end of the drill bit, the very point of the drill bit, just broke the surface of wood on the other side, and that was very deliberate. I didn't want it to go all the way through because I want it to have sort of somewhere to live or somewhere to seat, if you get what I mean. So then I reached for the glue bottle and watch this for an overspill. Whoops. Quite a lot there, quite a lot more than I needed. So I put the dowel in, and then I began the very long process of wiping up all of the squeeze out. So as the dowel had dried overnight, I was ready to cut it out. As you can see, I've just glued the side one in there and clamped it in. And I got my pool saw. This is a Parkside little mini Japanese pool saw. Really good, actually. The only criticism is the blade could do with being a bit less flexible. I know the whole point of these is to be flexible, but this is much more flexible than my other one. So I really took my time here because what I didn't want to do was saw part of the side. I just wanted to take the actual dowel out. I got most of it the first time, just a tiny little hitch which I took off again just because I wanted it to be as flat as possible, but really pleased with how it turned out. It's a great little tool, that. So the next stage was to sand. I just used my Ryobi sander. I think I've got 80 grit sandpaper on here, and I deliberately wanted to take off the surface of this part of the leg. My plan was always to varnish it. So I got the sander on and I took as much of it off as I could, which was really handy because it took most of the glue overspill as well that I had done. But I got a sander to it and I just knocked back the top layer. So again, I had a key to put the varnish on when it was finished. So I gave it a good sand and then a wipe down. It was ready to go. So apologies, not the greatest of camera angles, but first I got a wet cloth and just wiped off all the sort of residue from the sanding, and then I got a dry cloth and got it nice and dry. You can't see it there, but I got the glue spill on the inside as well. So when I was happy with that, it was time to move on to the next stage. So the next stage was to take the second peg off, which came off even better than the first one. I was very happy. And then just give it a sand. And I'd realised that when I was sanding it before, when that was in, I'd missed some patches. So I just went back all over it with a sander just to make sure I got everything off. Then a quick wipe down with a wet cloth and then a dry cloth just to drop it all off. So the next stage was just to apply some varnish. I'd chosen this yacht varnish because I wanted something that was going to be waterproof because these chairs get washed and wiped a lot. I actually got this from Poundland. It was a real bargain. It's great quality stuff. You can't get it anymore, which is a shame. What I didn't see until I made this was obviously that spill out on the inside, but it took the coat very well. I was pleased with how it looked. And with that, the chair was finished. So, fellow woodworkers, that is the chair complete. As you will have seen, few issues on the way, I'm not going to lie, particularly around the gluing, which I tried to do at first, and obviously you saw in the video it didn't work at all. It's a little bit tacky, so I've got to be careful, but I'm really happy with how it looks. I think there's a tiny little bit that's on the back side where the two the two splits haven't joined properly, but I think sanding it off to give it a rough edge really worked. It's helped it sort of bond together. And the two dowels that are in the side, yes, you can see them, but they're perfectly flat. And now that it's got some varnish on it, I don't think they're going to stick out too much when it's completely dry. So for a first attempt at repairing something, I'm really, really happy with how it's turned out. And this is the first in a series of videos I'm going to make just on small little projects around the workshop where, you know, I can make things or repair things, especially if I've never done them before. Obviously using the dowels to plug in. I've got one dowel from the top here, which should help with the movement when it's moving side to side, and one from the side, which should help the sort of up and down. I'm really confident that that's going to hold, and I'm very pleased. If this is your first time at the Garage Workshop, thank you so much. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't forget, mention the comments. Always happy to receive comments, and I try and reply to all of them. If you are a regular viewer, thank you so much. I can't believe how much the channel has grown. When I started this channel, I only expected to get 4 or 5 people, family members, and at the time of doing this, I think I'm up to something like 140, which is absolutely fantastic. So please keep watching, lots of projects coming up, and I'll see you next week. Happy woodworking!